Opening the sutra, the Dharma in profoundly profound and infinitely subtle is rarely encountered even in millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning.
Good afternoon, everybody. From Dogen's instruction to the householder, Old Master Tong's Not Concealed. One day, Master Tong and Ting John were strolling along the shore of a pond. Master Tong said, the lotus flowers in this pond are so fragrant. John agreed, saying, yes, the lotus flowers really are fragrant. Just then, suddenly, Master Tong said, not concealing it from you. How? How? Suddenly, John awakened. Master Dogen's comment. This is truly the power of practice to get to the bottom of the matter. But who will obtain the understanding of true emptiness and pull the fish from the water if they are lazy again and again and again and again? You know, it's interesting that the other famous Dogen writing to the lay folk is Genjo Koan, right? And that's a good 10 years earlier than this. And he ends on a much more chipper note, you know, oh, it's all milk and cream, isn't it wondrous, you know? Now he's had 10 years, you lazy. Even Dogen can ripen, huh? So what is this this bottom of the matter? What is this awakening? What does it take to, after all, can't we all notice a beautiful spring breeze and take delight in it? Why all the fuss about such a mundane thing? It's a fair question, especially those who are deeply immersing themselves in the rigors of sesshin. You might be asking yourself that very question from time to time. But there's actually a lot to unpack there. Because you see, and you know, if you've looked at this teaching, that this exchange happened again sometime earlier. Where the old master said, concealing it from you, how? How can it be concealed? And the student at that time was unable to respond. No way to respond to the moment and meet it. And then something happened in the interim. Something happened, and then suddenly later, a simple stroll and a noting of the spring breeze catalyzed getting to the bottom of the matter. Well, if we want to dissect a little bit, as we do, as Dogen did, as the lineage before him and after him has, we have to think very clearly about what's going on and how to approach it. This is not really just a wild, chaotic guess. It might feel that way at times. You'll probably be wrung out. But but there's a real structure to this. And Master Dogen, in his teaching in this fascicle, this writing that we've been looking at, this Ango, and really all of the different subjects that we've been working with this Ango, all point to the same business of getting to the deep bottom of the heart of things. So, as we saw, Dogen points out a couple of important features that really need to be in place. Again, he's writing to folks who live in the world of churn and up and down and victory and loss and, all the crazy gray things in between, who can tell? That's the world that he's addressing. So firstly, he points out the importance of finding a true teacher and the parallel, avoiding a false teacher. And it's very important because right in the very beginning of this is the humility to realize that we need a guide. Thank goodness I had enough sense in my younger days to realize I needed help with this. I'm so glad. One of the most pernicious diseases is thinking you know it, thinking you've got this figured out. You can spend decades of your life continually reifying your own self-anointed understanding, suffering the whole while, convincing yourself it's just fine, and it's not, and you know it. So the first thing is get connected. Get connected to the lineage. Get connected to a real teacher. Now, luckily, as the years go on, there's more and more access to this outside of the rarefied institutions in Asia. Luckily and happily, there are every now and then a Mazel Tov will go across the interweb of a teacher who's just transmitted to a new successor, and the chorus of hoorays comes forth from all quarters. Because really it's a celebration for the entire Mahasangha, the larger Sangha. When anywhere the Dharma is transmitted, then everywhere the practice is improved, right? So this business of a true teacher, what's that? Honestly, Dharma transmission is necessary but not sufficient. There are folks who actually have legitimate papers of transmission and a legitimate lineage that I would never send anyone to. So if that's not sufficient, what is sufficient? Well, what's sufficient is that the actual awakening that is pointed to in our koan has occurred not just once. Oh, no, not just once, no. No, this is a thing that has happened over and over. The breakthrough has occurred and then is integrated and then frankly forgotten about, left behind, or worse, made a trophy of. Be careful of that. And then again, this breaking through occurs over and over and over, this tumbling into ourselves. It's certainly not a one and done. And this is one of the great, shadow sides to reading encounters like the one we just had. If you didn't know, you'd think this one walk around the pond handled it. I hate that guy. No, there's more to it than this. And then, being able to have actually had the experience of awakening, the many experiences of human awakening, integrating them is, again, separable from being of any use to anyone else. There are many, many very deep and very solid awakened practitioners of the Dharma for whom teaching is simply not their fate, It takes an additional quality of chemistry to be of use in that particular and strange way. Of course, those folks are pillars of the Sangha. They are what actually keeps the foundation in place. But this false teacher stuff, this isn't just Dogen, kind of railing on in a moment. This is something that the Buddha himself had to deal with. His culture was filled with spiritual teachers. He was just another guy, just another teacher, man, like, another hippie band in the 60s. Yeah, so what? There's lots of them. What makes this one any different? So, he had to be very clear about navigating when disciples of other traditions, the Brahmin caste, for example, would come and query, and it's amazing to watch how he handled those circumstances. Not always the same, by the way. Sometimes very sharp, sometimes very soft, sometimes not even a whisper. But one can be sure, relatively sure, that at each time and place, the situation was met impeccably. Bodhidharma, who is said to have brought the teaching of embodied awakening that would later be termed Zen from China, or from India up into China, was said to have carried the Lankavatara Sutra with him. This significantly to me was the sutra that was given to me as my transmission documents for Inka Shomei. Myoen Roshi got a hold somehow of a first edition copy of Daisetsu Suzuki's translation, and stamped right there in the intro pages, which this is not, but stamped in there. So pretty significant, this little text. There were others, of course. But even in this text, this business of watch out for false teachers is right in there. Check it out from the Transcendental Intelligence chapter. As for the teachings, the sutra states, there are priests and popular preachers who are given to ritual and ceremony, who are skilled in various incantations and in the art of eloquence. They should not be honored, nor reverently attended upon. For what one gains from them is emotional excitement and worldly enjoyment. It is not the Dharma. Such teachers, by their clever manipulation of words and phrases and various reasonings and magical incantations, being the mere prattle of a child, as far as one can make out, and not at all in accordance with truth, nor in unison with meaning, only serves to awaken sentiment and emotion, while it stupefies the mind. As they themselves do not understand the meaning of things, they only confuse the minds of their hearers with their dualistic views. Not understanding themselves that there is nothing but what is seen of mind, and themselves attached to the notion of self-nature and external things, and unable to know the path from another, they have no deliverance to offer anyone. Thus, these priests and popular preachers who are clever in various incantations and skilled in the art of eloquence, themselves never being emancipated from the calamities of samsara, lead the ignorant into bewilderment by means of their various words, phrases, examples, and conclusions. Watch out. As you might imagine, I hear from a lot of folks that are raised in a given tradition, a religious tradition, that somewhere come to realize, wait a minute, I'm being manipulated here. I am being psychologically and emotionally manipulated. there's nothing else behind the curtain. It really is just a powerful rock band that always sounds like the Joshua Tree album somehow from U2. And smoke machines and images and swaying. And what else is there? For some, the answer is nothing. And there are other examples to be drawn. Now, some people say, well, you need to make session more interesting for people, What if there was some music, or maybe how about a sound bath, or perhaps some visual art expression time, or we could do interpretive dance. You might be able to get some more bodies in the room, but there would be no students at the temple. I'd rather have a few hardy students any day than a throng of sentimentality that keeps saying, feed me, feed me, feed me. Because you know, those emotions come, and what happens? They fucking go. They don't stay. And then what? Then you feel, oh, I'm a schmo because I don't feel this way anymore. Now I feel that way. So what's wrong with me? No, dear one, no. A true teacher is not there to entertain you. They may be entertaining at times, but they're not there to entertain you. You may feel, and I have felt, deep emotional processing and connection and devotion and all kinds of stuff. But that's also a side product. That is not the main case. If you're sitting there and trying to make your zazen feel like some emotional epiphany, breath after breath, you are doomed. It's not going to happen. And that's not what it's supposed to be anyway. Rather, what do we have? We've got we get things as simple as we can possibly make them. We go to extreme lengths to not even have to say, prepare for lunch. Right? And it takes some chutzpah to make this. It takes a lot of buy-in, and it takes a lot of mutual agreements and harmony in the Sangha to actually pull off a functioning structure that is not designed to have you play with toys. This is no toy. This is your life for real. So be careful of teachers that dangle interesting toys. I wonder. Actually, I don't. I know. There's a teaching in the Mahayana that says, not the teacher, the words, but not just the words, the meaning. But not just the surface meaning, the deep meaning. Not just the intellectual understanding, but the direct experience. The direct experience that the words point to. Language is okay if it's used and wielded wisely. Otherwise, it is the matrix that you're jacked into. And I don't want to go on a whole tangent on this, but I'm following very closely AI and the development. The first time ever that we're going to have a non-human intelligence create narrative. The Guggenheim Press never wrote a book, right? The Guggenheim Press and the Chinese predecessor to it, let's be frank, printed the content of other Homo sapien minds. Story, myth, scripture, whatever. Now, for the first time, a truly non-human intelligence will be generating, is in fact already generating, story and language. And this is how we see the world. This is how we perceive the world. Dear one, if ever there was a time to break free from words, it's now more than ever. Do you see? So what is a live word? What is a dead word? We use these terms in the tradition. Live words are those that speak directly to the heart, directly to the deepest part of our own Dharma. Our own Dharma I resonates with them. I feel rather like it's like when I play a particular note on the guitar, the other strings that are in alignment with it will begin to resonate. I feel that a live word coming from the awakened lineage has the capacity to have the same note that is already within ourselves begin to actually vibrate and wake up and go, whoa, who knew? Dead words, on the other hand, they just play with your emotions. They're just toys. Now, they may dangle delights. They may dangle terrors. It doesn't matter. It's the same trap. Exactly the same trap. As we often say, it's not that thoughts and ideas arise. That's fine. You're alive. It's that you don't cling to them, that you stay awake, that you are mindful, that you are watching, and you take mastery and you have custody over what's happening in your awareness. Where do you choose, dear one, to put your awareness? Not that your mind can be harnessed and taken by the scary or the beautiful. There is scary, there is beautiful. Don't be trapped. Don't be fooled. I'm not looking for you to come into the Doksan room and tell me how good your Zazen feels. That's not the marker. It's not about, oh, it was horrible sitting and now it's delightful sitting. I'm like, oh, well, okay, keep sitting. Something else needs to start coming online beyond, I like it, I don't like it. Dogen goes on and he points out the importance of working closely with and serving the teacher. Now, this has to be understood maturely, right? Sometimes students are overly passive. An overly passive student will just kind of always and forever kind of hang in the back and never really put their practice on the line. There's no way to do that at session, baby. It's not going to happen here. You need to ring a bell. You need to be the jisha or the something or other or whatever you call that one. You've got to go and do stuff. You've got to show up. And at the very least, you've got to go into Doksan, right? There is no hiding in that space. Have you noticed? But you know what? People still do go in there and hide. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Okay? That mask has been on so long, and in fairness, perhaps has served us so well at times, that we cannot even conceive of what it is to take that damn thing off. We've forgotten that it's a mask entirely. We think it's our face. You dumbass. It's not your face. It's not your face. It's a mask. Take it off. Ah, you're killing me. Ah. No, honey. I appreciate it might feel that way, but no, that is not what's going on. Yeah, you have to be able to step back a little bit and go, what is this thing I'm doing? What is, first of all, what is actually happening here? And did I agree to this? Did I sign a consent? Was I informed fully? Did I make an adult, mature, critically reasoned choice about this particular mask I have here? The answer is no, you did not. Absolutely not. This accretion came to you through circumstance, right? Karmic influence from ages past that show up in your form and body. Situations that pushed you and pulled you and left you alone. What will you do? How will you deal? And good on you. You found a way. And yet, ultimately, it fails you. The mask is no more a refuge than those emotions. It's not. Even if the mask wins and arranges the world exactly to its will and whim, still, when head hits the pillow at night, you know. Yes, you do. You know that this isn't it. And I don't care what your external life looks like. It has nothing to do with it. Some people seem as though they have it all figured out. That's nice, unless it's a trap. But that's not the marker either, any more than, oh, my zazen feels great. That's not the marker either. I mean, obviously, I would rather have my zazen feel nice than feel shitty, sure. I'd rather have things kind of figured out than living in chaos, yeah. But that's not it. Don't mistake. The true refuge is beyond yin and yang, yeah? It's beyond the reach of up and down, yes and no, got the gig, lost the gig. That stuff can't touch it. Sometimes, rather than being too passive, a student can be way too aggressive. Way too aggressive. Dial down, dude. Dial down. Because that's actually another very deep-seated control mechanism, right? I'll control this by really taking this thing on, you know. And so students like that, they tend to be overly agitated and they're like a thoroughbred that just moves all the time and can't sit still. And there's a lot of going on all the time. You know what I mean? We're just going for a walk. It's like just, okay, go sit some more. Go sit some more. But that one's good because that one is they're showing up by gum. They're showing up, right? They're in. But there's a way of being so in that too is hiding. I'm going to be the front of the class. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to be the shiny one. I'll show everybody, including me. I hope that I'm there. That doesn't get it. There's no amount of that actually resolves it. It's not like, 10% more of that and now you'll finally be able to smell the lotuses in the pond. No. It isn't like that. You have to drop that. That's just another mask. It's really simple. Just sit there. Sit still, for God's sake. Please, sit still. Cut it out. Just sit still. I know this. I know that. I know the other. I don't care. You shouldn't care either. Just sit. Just sit. And do whatever your practice is. Keep it very clean. Right? Very clean. Right down the center. When it's time to ring the bell, just ring the bell. When you do it wrong and get correction, you just receive the correction. That's it. That's it. You know, you might look at the noble and venerable Shuso and think, well, there's one who makes no mistakes. What a mistake that would be. In fact, you know, at rehearsal today, for those who were there, there's a moment scripted in the ceremony of a huge, unforgivable mistake. That's part of it. It's part of the empowerment ceremony. It's baked right in there for good reason. Isn't it amazing? Can you imagine being in school in those dreaded years, and your job is to get up on the blackboard with the multiplication tables and completely do it wrong in front of everyone, and everybody claps? What would that be like? Right? Like, hey, a solid mistake. Nice. We can work with that, right? Instead of going up there in terror that you're not going to know 6 times 6 is whatever that is, in front of everybody. I sweated blood over those multiplication tables. I still do. I'm still not instantly sure. What is that, 30-something? Not my area of bandwidth, honestly, right? But I remember the terror of going up to the board. It was a chalkboard back in the day. I don't even know what it is today, holograms, or I don't know what. Oh, no. What if we celebrated mistakes? What if not knowing was great? As well as knowing. This is not Luddite. This is not just live in a stupor. Don't mishear what's being said. So this working closely with and serving the teachers, it's not just literally whoever happens to be holding a stick in the zendo. Understand that attending closely to the teacher means attending closely to the schedule of sesshin. That the entire everything about sesshin is that. You want to understand my teaching? Follow the schedule. It's there every single minute. If you're paying attention to the minute you're in, you're paying attention to the lineage and to the teachings. You're there at the pond smelling the lotus. And one day you really will. Now it's interesting, in Dogen's fascicle, he says, maybe you caught this, go and hang with the teacher for 3 to 5 years. Clarify the matter. Anybody, that catch anybody's ear? 3 years? 3 years? 5 years? Shuso, how long have you been practicing here? Close to 20. It's more like it. But you know what's actually being pointed to? It's not years, it's days. Really, it's days. And it's not just days hanging out. Guess what? It's days of sesshin. That's right, baby. That's right. That's exactly right. And suddenly, it makes a lot of sense. I'm on the 40-year plan myself here. This is, but if you really think of it in terms of days of engagement, then it makes total sense. Brad Warner is a person who's received transmission who occasionally has interesting things to say, and Zen-adjacent tales for thrill seekers. One time he really got it wrong. I mean, not just once. Sometimes I like what he says a lot, sometimes not so much. But I remember he somehow got a hold of Dosho Port Roshi's saying that, it takes something like 200 days of a retreat have a verifiable kensho that takes, and then maybe another 100 or two or so to really integrate it in rough cut, something like that. And you know what? That's not a radical statement. The American Zen Teacher Association, of which I'm a member, it's not just do you have transmission, it's how many days of session did you do with your teacher? Because guess what? No matter what lineage we're talking about, Korean or Sanbo Zen or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? White plumbers or whatever we are. How many days of session have you done? And guess what? There are some people that have transmission documents, and the answer is a week, none. Now that, I hope, is very confusing to you and unfathomable. But the reality is you can go to Japan, you can hang, you can get the equivalent of a degree, and transmission there happens. I mean, priests give it to their high school age kids because they're going to take over the temple one day. It's not exactly the same thing. So this business of be attentive to the teacher and the teachings, it doesn't mean follow me around all the time. It really doesn't mean that. It's like, just no. No. But it does mean attend to the schedule. And at the appropriate time, don't be too aggressive about it. Don't hide. Just right, the porridge, just right? Just right, the amount. Then it's correct, and something can happen. In our koan here, there was a real attentiveness between the master and the disciple, and it's in the correct measure. And how do I know that? Because it worked. That's how I know. That's how you can know. Dogen goes on to say, take up a koan and break through. Take up a live word and break through. Very interesting advice from old Master Dogen. Typically painted as one who taught simply to just sit there. Why would he say in his letter of how to do this, why doesn't he mention shikantaza at all? Instead, what does he say? You need a koan, and you need a teacher, and connect with that teacher and break through. And then you're not done, integrate that. And as I said, that happens over and over and over. Sometimes, you can sit with a koan for a really, what seems to you, an extraordinarily and unfair amount of time. Especially if you're thinking about a race. But I guarantee you that if you're really sitting with that koan, it's just exactly right. It's exactly right. Let it do its work. Let it work on you. Sometimes you might feel like you can just go bang, 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 bang. But be careful of that too. Make sure you're actually integrating every step. That's on you. Nobody can do that for you. You've got to do that, and you can. Yes, you can. Requires these solid, committed days where really all the other concerns, which are always there, are temporarily, truly set to the side as much as you can. But honestly, especially in the first, 10 years or so, or the first, let's say that first 200 days, some number, first 100 days of session, however we decide this, especially in the early part, you really need to give yourself the gift of just show up, unpack your bags, and stay. Don't move. When you leave, you take all the pressure off. Whether or not you are aware of it, you do. It's inevitable, right? And by leave, I don't mean just drive. I mean, you can sit there in your bunk and click on your phone, and guess what you've just done? You've left session, baby. You have. Yes, you have. Your body might be in the building, but your mind is off in the internet. And you know what that does? That takes all the concentration out the windows. Don't do that. Really don't do that. Now, we all live lives. I have a life too, I understand. But you've got to understand that when you're doing that, you need to do the absolute, honest, no bullshit minimum that you can possibly get away with. And the best recommendation, shut the phone off and don't turn it on until the week's over, and tell whoever, if some horrific calamity arises, that they can be in touch with the Tonto. When I went to session, there were no cell phones. Nobody had them. It hadn't happened yet. I am pre-Google. But you know what we did? We said, okay, tell your family and your loved ones or whoever you have, here's the number to call, and if some emergency comes up, then have them not call you. They call the Tonto, right? And the Tonto gets the message, and you will be pulled from the Zendo, and of course we'll take care of what needs to be taken care of right away. No worries. But I didn't have the burden of having to check a phone. Now, when phones became the thing that they've become, guess what? Turn them off. Same guidelines. It's really best. And also, in some situations, it's not possible. I know. But you have to understand what you're playing with when you do that and take responsibility for it. Does it make sense to everybody? This is important. Remember what I said about emotions and toys. For your mind to dry up and to have the snot stop jettisoning from you, from your mind snot, you have to quit playing with those allergens that are so pleasing, because they're constantly agitating your mind into snotting stuff out over and over and over. And it feels good to blow your nose like that, but stop it. Just put the contagions down. Don't play with the toy. Just, I know it's boring. If it's delightful, that's fine. If it's painful, actually, that's fine too. Just stay with it and trust yourself and trust the process. And while we're chatting about this together, just you and me, coming in for a day and leaving is way better than not. Coming in for a portion of the day is way better than just not showing up. But honestly, especially in that early chunk, this is a big project. It's best served in the format we're doing this week. You can show up on, what did we do, Monday night. Just sit there on Tuesday. No talk, no doksan, just the barest schedule possible. And you can have your calamity. Good for you. Excellent. Bring the crisis. Good. Excellent. We like a good crisis. It's good. Very good. So the next day, the crisis hits. You get a no where you expect a yes, whatever. And I'm not saying it has to be like this. But now, then go home. No. Now you've got the next day, and the next day, and the next day, in this deep heart and womb of silence and stillness, and shall we say it, love. Love, baby. Compassion and wisdom and love and equanimity. You can process and deal with things that would take you years if you trust the silence and trust yourself and stay. Does that make sense? But again, if you keep letting the heat off, with the phone or the pooch or the job or whatever, and I understand. But if you do that, you have to understand you're shutting off your own ability to go through the process. And even if it's not around, and hopefully it isn't always around some crisis, although don't be surprised, but a lot of times it's around integrating actual insight or awakening. You actually feel something real, you sense something real, you connect with something. You need time, baby. You need time to steep in that and allow it to really settle into your roots. You can't just touch it, notice, and move on. It's not like tap, tag. Hear it. It's not like that. You see the thing, let's say, we'll be generous, say you see it. Now sit with it. Forget about it and remember it again. Have it come back up and present to you. You see? This process, then, you can really trust it. Great things take time to develop. The cheap vines out there, they grow quick. The tall, deep trees, they grow slow. But they're the ones you can rely on. In our workshop, we talked about this business of awakening from the perspective of the Heart Sutra. It was a very important workshop. Basically, consciousness looking back at mental formations when you're still enough, when you can see the like and dislike, and you can see beyond it and past it into perception itself, and beyond that into the feeling, and then direct contact with just exactly perceiving form directly. You know, we say form, feeling, perception, mental formation. There's different English languages for this. Form, sensation, perception, mental reaction, yada, yada. And of course, we're saying those are all empty, right? And emptiness is those things. But the process of training is going upstream from that. It's learning to use your consciousness to turn backwards and look directly at those mental formations and actually see them. Actually see and recognize what's going on and not play with them and not be played by them. Not be played by them. And go beyond them. What is beyond like and dislike? What is beyond yin and yang? It's not some abstract idea. When you hear phrases like that, perhaps you get all Kantian or Nietzsche or Augustine or out there in the ether somewhere. Don't do that. It's not out there. It's not out there. It's right here, baby. Right here. Tuning into perception. Of what? A feeling. Of what? Form. All of which are empty. But over and over again, you're confronted with different form, if you think about it. The bell, the bird, the light, the feeling in the body. It's so right here, and yet it is so subtle. If we don't settle down, we'll never notice it. We will live and die not having seen ourselves. So, all of this is a physically embodied thing. It's not a head trip. Well, it's not just a head trip. It's a heart trip, and it's a gut trip, and it's a body trip. The whole of us. So like how you're sitting matters. How you hold the tray matters. How you meet the bow or don't matters. All of these things, they're not incidental. And it's not just about obsessing about being correct all the time. It's about intimacy. It's about really connecting and meeting each other. These are miraculous moments, each one of them. Once you smell the lotus and the pond, then you are surrounded by miracles endlessly, endlessly, endlessly. You're surrounded. It's overwhelming. It's amazing, and it's the most mundane thing, and it's the most miraculous thing. It's beyond description, and yet we have to say something. And so it comes down to, how do we do that? How do we get from having no way to respond to actually awakening to the smell of the flowers and the spring breeze, and then integrating it, really integrating. So it's not just a flash in the pan. It becomes the basic operating system as we originally are. Well, it's not random either. There are stages along the path. There are moments, there are lines in the air that can be drawn and crossed or not. And one such is Shuso. So over this retreat, we've heard from the previous Shuso and the current Shuso. Heard Sensei talk about her koan. All of these things are trying to help us realize that this is not a distant process. This is intimate and this is immediate. And yet, it's Kaishin's turn. All of it comes down to him. And it's a serious business. You know, I'll call your attention to the ceremony tomorrow. There's a moment where he gets a stick. It's cool. It's called a shepe. It's the top third of a yumi, which is like the 7-foot long bow. It's pretty cool. You know, it's all lacquered up. It's got tassels. It's nice. But what it is symbolizing, what it actually is it's the staff of the lineage. You know, we have these things. These are all expressing the same thing. It's the teaching. And so there's a very particular moment I want to call your attention to when that is handed from the lineage, the ancestors, the guiding teachers, the abbot, is actually handed to the Shuso, who then takes it. And now they hold that, right? And it's not just a game. That's very real what's happening there. And I tell you, that's a barrier to confront. And you need to. You need to. You need to do that. I'm just going to say it. There's no reason why every one of y'all don't have your time. You deserve it. You need it. And you have to earn it. You have to authentically, really, verifiably be ready. Because if you're not, that thing can bite you. If you are, well, then it can be wielded from the bodhisattva mind. Illuminating forms in their nature for the benefit of all beings throughout space and time comes down to this place, this person, this gathering, this sangha. So this business of participating in the teaching. It's important that you realize the way that this is thought of is that my teacher's robe is an extension of their teacher's robe. So Jiyu Kenneth Roshi, Aitken Roshi, and Tarrant Roshi, their robes flow still. And Myoen Roshi wears it. And this robe is but a continuance of that one, as is Doan Sensei's and y'all. There's only one robe. But being able to participate in the teaching takes some doing. But in the end, all of this comes down to a walk around the pond and the smelling of some beautiful fragrance, and perhaps a live word, a simple prod. And when the student's ready, it's more than enough. One day, old Master Tong and his disciple Ting Jian were strolling along the shore of a pond. Old Master Tong simply said, "The lotus flowers in this pond are so fragrant. John agreed, saying spontaneously, yeah, man, the lotus flowers are so fragrant. Suddenly, fiercely, old Master Tong became a dragon and said, not concealing it from you, how? How? And at that, John suddenly awakened. Centuries later, Master Dogen would comment by saying, this is truly the power of practice to get to the bottom of the matter. And then, because he'd been doing it a while, who will obtain the understanding of true emptiness and pull the fish from the water if they're lazy again and again and again? So the answer to that is no one. So rather than be lazy again and again, let's be committed again and again. I understand energy wanes and surges. No kidding. It's not about that. It's not about pretending your energy is always at 110. I don't trust that either. It's just not true. But authentically, sincerely, with the heart of compassion and the mind of bodhicitta, turn again to your practice. Turn to it anew as though you don't know a damn thing about it, and see what rises. Isn't the smell of the spring breeze wondrous?
Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter gold.